Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We just finished up checking out something for unique vocals, and we're going to be moving on into some special selection. Today's special selection comes at us from Kevin. It says, The Angelic Process, The Promise of Snakes. These are such hard choices. Here's some atmospheric drone. It should be something new for you and anyone else yet to hear it. I was also informed that, coincidentally, the special selection, Kevin's special selection today is on his birthday. So happy birthday, Kevin. Let's get into this 10 minutes, almost 10 minutes, 9.5 minutes of atmospheric drone. I'm going in with the right mindset at least. So let's see what happens. Yeah, we got a lot of effects on this guitar already. Sounds like we got a delay, we got some reverb, bit of compression. Actually, it almost sounds like there's a bit of compression on the entire song. Even that droning that's underneath the guitar is compressed. Yeah, I love how that cymbal rings out there because honestly we only have hits on 1 and 3, but that cymbal really fills in that space on 2 and makes the only empty beat 4. Well, we also have that kick on the end of 3, which helps fills in 3 as well. Sorry, the end of... Yeah, the end of 2. Which that combined with the cymbal spilling over fills in that second beat a bit. Provides a sort of a stop and start motion. Like the song, the song's trying to get going. Oh, wow. Speaking about a machine, that is a pretty completely encompassing sounds. Yeah, and talking about everything being compressed, I'm pretty sure everything has some compression on it by here. It's almost interesting that the drums are being drowned out by that chugging. And the chugging actually takes on more of the rhythmic role the drums were doing. It almost felt a bit sluggish too, like if you line up with what the drum's doing, there's actually a delay to the attack on that chugging, which makes it feel like it's dragging just a hair. Like the song just does not want to go. It is being forced to progress. There's a lot of sound being cut off too. Like, despite this massive wall right here, it sounds muffled. And I almost wonder if when it hit harder, if it had the full range to express itself. but that would also be a very different sound than this. So yeah, really building some interesting atmospheres with these atmospheric sounds. They're not really notes; they're just sounds to fill in the backgrounds. It's interesting too how it's super heavy, super oppressive, and yet there seems to be a constant, not constant, but lately in the past couple of sections, we've had this brighter sound at the top, bringing in some hope. Yeah, that was clever. We had almost a full stop for 2 beats maybe, and they just brought this snare hit right back, faded it right back in like psych. Yeah, this is definitely droney, but there's still a lot of movement and various sections to the song. I think this is really the first part that I felt has hit that point of repetition that I'm waiting for the next part to come. But overall, yeah, overall, there's still a lot of dynamic variety going on. Once again, this really uplifting brightness against the sea of darkness and weight. And this is very reminiscent of the intro. Very abrupt coming back to this though. And great use of volume dynamics as well. This is a quiet section that's actually registering as quiet. Yeah, and I like that slow pan. I think it works very well, especially with that warbling effect. So yeah, that is my first question: is this metal? And I only bring that up because a lot of my talking points I feel like are going to be very similar to what I talk about when we listen to electronic music. Um, there is some musical stuff I'm going to talk about as far as what could be written down on sheet paper, but a majority of the things I have planned to speak about in this analysis section is going to be production wise. And in that sense, I start thinking about it. I'm listening to this song very much like it's an industrial track. Sorry, like an electronic track. However, the sound of it is definitely metal. It is heavy, it is abrasive, it is aggressive. I'm pretty sure it's guitar and drums. So it definitely has that rock metal element there, but it's just been, shape shifted into something that's very, very different for the instruments that are being brought up. And it's definitely a very cool thing. Um, so this came out in 2018, and it is most certainly what I would say is one of the benefits of cross pollination across genres. Uh, I I feel like there's this pushback for purity. Pop should stay pure, and rock and metal should stay pure. We shouldn't bring pop elements or techno into metal and stuff like that. And yeah, I don't see it. I definitely think we shouldn't lose those elements. I hope that we don't get away from bands who, really explore and push the genre itself in new directions. But every genre is eventually going to get phased out and evolved into something new. It is just the process of evolution. And I absolutely love when we see stuff like this where it takes a very rock and metal sound and says, what if we don't write metal music for it? What if we keep the sound? We keep the atmosphere, but let's approach the writing process completely differently. And I adore that. I think it's awesome. So we have a song here that has these metal elements. It is oppressive, it is aggressive, it is loud, it is heavy, it is wall of sound, but the instruments themselves are almost completely divorced from their natural sounds. I've mentioned before that when we distort and overdrive and add compression to guitars to get that metal sound, we actually are removing some of the characteristics of the natural sound of the instrument. Anytime that you're going to distort a sound, or I believe overdrive actually pushes it into clipping territory, and part of the clipping is going to be degradation of the sound. We're actually destroying some of the characteristics of that tone to create that metal aspect. This feels like pushing that to the nth degree. It almost doesn't sound like a guitar at all in some situations, and it wouldn't surprise me if I found out that most of these pitched sounds, basically the non drum stuff, were synthesizers of some sort rather than guitars. It's very possible I heard guitars because I was expecting guitars, more so than I heard them because that's what they are. But in either case, we have a tone that is completely transformed by compression and distortion and destruction, and all sorts of ways to take away and strip out some of the core timbre characteristics of a sound and to create this new sound out of it. And most of these sounds are super crunchy, they're very distorted, they're very compressed, they have a lot of that grit on top of them, and There, I also feel like this whole song is pushed way into the red volume wise, and part of that actually I think removes some of the width to the song. Like I said, it feels muffled. The entire song sounds muffled, like I'm listening to this concert on the outside of the venue. And to me, like, I completely understand it from an artistic perspective. I think it is very unique. And maybe it's just because I love clean productions and I want to hear some of these elements that have been removed by pushing the volume so high. But I wonder how different this would have sound if the top end of the sound wasn't removed due to clipping, and we actually got to hear the full width of audio. There's definitely some parts here that I personally think lacked the oppressive weight because they sounded muffled. I don't know if I'm alone in that. Um, but as I mentioned, if that were to happen and this alternate style of the song came out, it would be a very different style of song. The atmosphere would be completely changed. The muffled part is very much a characteristic that extends through this entire production. And removing that and having more of a clean mix on it is going to drastically change what the song is, what it's accomplishing, how it feels to listen to. So I completely understand that while I am curious what that sounds like, I do not want to state that as an improvement, even if I might prefer it. It's not an improvement, it's a change. I would say it's a parallel change. It produces a different song entirely. Um, the drums are also interesting. There is some compression on the drums as well, but it isn't done in a way to muffle or compress or even kind of give it that staticky crackle, the distortion sounds. It almost feels like the compression is added on the drums in an effort to line them up more closely with everything else in the band or everything else in the song. Everything has this sort of overhead crunch to it, and if the drums didn't have that, they would stand out wildly. Now, a byproduct of this and allowing it, giving it this crunch so that it fits in, blends better with what the rest of the band is doing or the rest of the instruments are doing. A byproduct of this is that it also loses a bit of the punch that percussive instrument is known for. It's high attack, quick decay. Unless you're working with cymbals, they tend to have a nice shimmer after you hit them. Um, but it kind of muffles all of the core aspects of the drum, which I would say is the strong attack. Um, and in that, it allows it to be buried in the mix in some cases, such as the opening chugging aspect. Not in the intro, the first section, where that chugging instrument sound drowns out the drums and actually takes over as the rhythmic center of the section. And it's just kind of wild to hear that. You have a percussive instrument and you're actively, pushing it out of the picture, especially after solidifying it as the percussive instrument, the metronome, the timekeeper in the first minute or two of the slower intro section. And then just to say, you're not good enough. Listen to this boom, 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 this big chugging sounds. It's a wild way to start the song and a complete subversion of expectations. Speaking on subversion of expectations, atmospheric drone is the best genre name I could probably give these without going into something just super specific to specifically describe this song. But it's also not, it doesn't carry some of the expectations that I assign to drone, which is repetition. I think the song definitely sits within that pocket of creating an atmosphere and allowing the listener to really allow the sound to envelop them and to provide a specific atmosphere to that repetition. That does happen in several situations, but it's also a song that moves. It is constantly working towards getting to the next section, introducing new ideas. For a 10-minute song, we've heard some drone stuff that's 3 4 minutes. That's like one idea. I'm pretty sure we've heard some drone in the 5 to 6 area. That's two ideas. So, a 9-minute song in the drone genre, being drone adjacent, could easily get away with maybe three ideas tops, and be accepted. Maybe even two ideas, and people who love drone would just absolutely adore that. But there was at least 4 or 5 in here, maybe 6 sections. We are looking at changing ideas every minute, minute and a half, which to me is not very drony, but it also is a song that utilizes a lot of repetition, which is drony. So yeah, it's just really cool for them to have expectations set, whether they know it's going to be something that is possibly introduced by the listener via genre name, or by setting their own expectations, like with the drum bit at the beginning, and then just saying, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna stick within this idea, but we're also gonna do something completely different with it. And I love that. This is drone that I could probably listen to, especially if I were doing something else, which is very weird to say. I think that's only the second or third time I've said it on the channel, and it's very different opinion than when I started this channel. And I said that I was not fond of music as background, that music is an art form and it should be appreciated with at least something close to full attention. I have traditionally not put music on in the background to do things, and I have started doing that lately, and it's kind of weird, but I'm kind of coming around to it. It's an interesting evolution of my musical opinions and my relationship to music. But this is definitely a song that, especially if I were to go through YouTube comments, which tends to be an hour, hour and a half task, I would put this on in the background. I think that would work well. It requires just enough attention that some of the different changes, it would draw my attention towards it. And I could say, oh, that's pretty cool. I like what they're doing now. But it also sits in these sections long enough that I can let my mind wander or let it focus on something else before returning back to the song. And yeah, it's like I said, it's a nice little middle section between full on repetitious droning that you really just want to zone out and meditate to, and a song that is just progressively changing. I also think that the transitions between their ideas are very smooth, aside from the final one when we transition from the last big section back to the quiet revisiting of the intro. That was just very sharp, and it's interesting. It's almost like a slap in the face if you weren't paying attention to the song, or if you were starting to drift out, if you're doing the meditation thing. It's like, hey, song's gonna be over soon. Wake up, come back to reality. Um, Sort of like guided meditation, letting you know that the meditative segment is over. Um, there's one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't remember. Oh, yeah, volume dynamics. I've mentioned in the past, I greatly appreciate songs that have dynamics in their volumes. That's loud sections versus soft sections. But I really, really love when the soft sections are actually quiet and they're not just engineered to feel quiet. And these guys do that very well. Their quiet sections almost had me turning up the volume, especially at the beginning of that outro. This was, oh man, the outro also had a synth pad that had a bit of a warble to it, panning back and forth. And now that that came up, it makes me wonder how much of the other stuff was synth and what was guitar. And now I have a question: if anybody knows anything about this band, group, song, person, is the Angelic process all digital? Is there some acoustic instruments, or not acoustic, physical instruments, I guess would be the opposite of virtual? Um, is there a guitar that is being fed into some effects somehow? Is it all synthesizer? Is this a person or a band? I have a lot of questions now that I'm thinking about it. But overall, like I said, this is a really interesting song to me, at least, because it does a lot of things new with ideas that I'm not usually too hot on, and I enjoyed the outcome of it. You know, the final part, the final product of creating this concept of drony post rock but done electronic style. There was that one section in the middle where we entered a bit of a slow burn. And I thought that was interesting to only use one slow burn, I thought, throughout the entire song. It was also the part where I mentioned that I was the most ready to move into the next section. And it wasn't long after I said that they did. But uh, it, I probably should have been paying a bit more attention, because this was the only part that seemed to be stacking layers. And I wonder how that contrasts with some of the more drony aspects where they start with the same concept at the end with. Like I said, those sections tend to be were shorter than the layered one, the slow burn. But I do like what the slow burn ended up being, and the sort of weight that they brought about that. Oh, another thing, God, is contrasting uh, emotions, atmospheres. We have a very strong, wall of sound, sort of oppressive sound throughout this entire song, but most of the melody lines are sort of bright and angelic. And I mean, the song's called, I mean, the group is called the Angelic Process, but I do think it's an interesting contrast to almost constantly have this element where you have this weight and this darkness, especially since a lot of their chords are kind of bluesy and have some negative emotions tied to them. We're really working within dread and despair, and then you have these bright, synth chords soaring over this, and it creates a very complex emotion that works well with the rest of the complexity introduced throughout the song. We have, multiple ideas of contrast. We have contrasting rhythmic elements. We have the quiet versus the loud, the narrow versus the wide, the bright versus the dark. We have sort of post rock drony versus electronic. There's just a lot of seemingly oppositional ideas throughout this song, and it's intriguing, at least to me. I'd like to see how far they can take this idea and where they take it. Like I said, this is something I could see myself putting on as background music and checking into it every once in a while to see what's up. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on the Angelic Processes, The Promise of Snakes, a very different take on post rock drony stuff. And yeah, very cool though. This is where you guys come in though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not, anything that stood out to you that maybe I didn't touch on. If you have any information about the group, what their instruments are, how many people are in it, that kind of stuff, I would love to know. Above the comments section, there's a description box, and there's a link for Linktree. It'll take you to a menu with everything related to the channel. If you want to support me through Patreon, if you want to submit your own special selections, if you want to follow me on Twitter, join a Discord community, it's all in there. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.